Good to go.
Good to go? Awesome. So I'm just going to change how I see people on my screen real quick and try to make it a little smaller. All right, well, good. What time is it? Afternoon? I was like, is it noon already? It is. So good afternoon. My name is Melanie. I am coming from Student Counseling Services. I'm one of their licensed clinical psychologists. Let's see, what else I do? I coordinate the, at this time of year, virtual groups and workshops that we offer every semester. So it's all virtual this year, just to give you a heads up, but I'll talk a little bit about SCS at the end. Today, I am going to be talking about resilience. So thank you for having me here. Excited to be speaking to graduate students. I definitely remember those years. And I chose this topic, one, this is probably going to resonate with a few of you. Resilience was actually the pretty main topic of my dissertation. So I already had all this information and thought it would be great to put it into a presentation that can now continue to be used. So I'm still getting out of my use out of my dissertation a few years later. And also, I'll talk a little bit more about this in the next slide or two, but resilience is something that I think a lot of people can just increase their awareness of and how they live with it in their life, or how they can enhance it throughout their daily lives. For you all, like thinking graduate school, as you continue on your careers, how can you still be a resilient being? My screen is blocking some of this stuff, so my apologies. There we go. So what is resilience? Very quick information. This is referred to as an individual's ability to adapt under stressful circumstances and to persevere in the face of adversity. I always talk about it as boop, 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 the ability to bounce back. So something happens to you, you feel like it's really just thrown you off course, and you're like, how am I going to get back from this? Resilience is kind of that like concept that helps you keep going, come back from it, and eventually potentially help you thrive. Important things to note, this is different for everybody. It varies with the context, the situation, whatever the event might have been that threw you off kilter, causes you stress. Also with age, I would say this is interesting. I think some studies show that resilience varies with age in the sense of you become more resilient as you grow older. And at the same time, I've also worked with children, and there are some resilient young kids out there. So I think it's, once again, it's kind of putting a few of these factors together. It depends on the situation. It also depends on the age, and then as well as gender, and then within each individual. So what that means is you might be more resilient, let's say in the academic world. Like if something happens that throws you off course for completing an assignment, you can still bounce back and do that pretty easily and get back on track. Or it might be in the social world, you might struggle there. So it might be you're resilient in the academic realm, but struggle a bit more with being resilient in the social or family realm, for instance. I like to add this slide just to share why should I be enhancing my resilience? What are the benefits here? Just the definition in itself sounds really great. Like it helps, people just get back on track. Higher resilience in research has also been linked to lower rates of depression, higher academic persistence, as we know, which is very important for graduate school, higher education. You want to stay, you want to get that degree, greater openness to new challenges, promotes active problem solving, and perceived favorable outcomes are another great benefit. So with that in mind, a bit of information about resiliency training so far. This is, I would say, a newer field. So even when I selected this as my dissertation so many years ago, I couldn't find a lot of research out there about resilience programs or resilience training. I would say late 90s is when I saw the big ones, and they started with young children, and now it's really been, I think, blossoming really into different schools are doing this, different communities, institutions. So it's being developed more and more specifically for students at all education levels. I know I read some studies where they did it with like elementary students, and I've also looked at where they've done it with university students. Those in medical school is actually one I'm going to reference later because I pulled an activity from their research. And high school, I mean, it's everywhere. They are doing it with workplaces and different companies. I know one of the fields of psychology, industrial organizational psychology, has been promoting this as well. Things that resilience programs and trainings tend to include are how can you focus on your attitude? This might be pulling from things for positive psychology. How can you be more optimistic, working on thinking patterns? And it also has a skills component where it might tell you or walk you through how can you practice gratitude? How do you target your negative thinking or thinking that tends to be unhelpful for you? How do you manage your stress? And then how do you eventually relax from being stressed out or overwhelmed? I'm going to walk through a few of these, and then I'm actually going to walk you through a practice, which, like I said, I found in one of the articles I found in an article I found, but yes. So first and foremost, I think when I was putting this together, I kind of blanked on this for a moment. And then I was like, this is extremely important. Like if your foundation isn't there physically, then it's definitely going to make you more vulnerable to stress, and you're not going to be able to bounce back and be as resilient as you possibly could be. So especially in this time, I'm not necessarily going to go into the whole everybody let's vent about COVID, but we do want to make sure we're on top of this so that it makes you more resilient, and so you're more able to bounce back and do what you need to do. So reminders: wash your hands as often as you can, 20 seconds at least. Definitely get a good foam going. Wear your mask when out in public, when you know you can't, next line, socially distant from people. So the COVID not 16 feet, excuse me, that would be great, 6 feet. Minimize traveling. As we know, there have been travel restrictions in place. So that is even domestically. So from state to state, I know I had someone just check, she's traveling out west, and she's like, okay, luckily this isn't on Ohio's travel restrictions. So she's able to come back and not worry about quarantine. I think she still made the decision to stay a little further from people for a few days just to make sure. And then also minimize what your group events are. As we know, there's the mandate here, stay less than 10. I always just say keep your social bubble small so you're able to keep track of social contacting and who you might be infecting if that were the case. I think Miami has now instituted the symptom checklist, which is campus clear. At least I know I do that daily when I'm coming onto campus, just to make sure, hey, we're good to go, you can come onto campus. Other components of physical health, no surprise here, keeping up with nutrition, make sure you're getting adequate sleep. I know that's extremely difficult depending on your schedule and graduate school courses. It all just depends. I think the recommended is about 6.5 to 7. I know myself, it's got to be 7. If it's less than that, I'm not functional. I also like to throw in, please remember to hydrate. This is one that a lot of people forget. I've made this a goal of like my 2020 of just making sure I drink, like, I did the count the other 60 ounces of water a day. And I'm like, this is doable. I can easily do one in the morning, afternoon, night, and then throughout the day. And then physical activity, which I will actually talk in one of the factors of resilience in a second. So physical health definitely falls under there and definitely can help you be more resilient moving forward. So to start with the first one, when you think about stress, I think, and when people mention, hey, I'm really stressed and stuff, first route is how do you relax? How do we get them to relax? Let's talk through this. So relaxation response is how you know you are relaxed. So I like to talk about these signs just for a quick second. You know you're relaxed when your heart rate has slowed down significantly. You've noticed your decreased metabolism, which might feel like your adrenaline's finally, slowly getting to a more baseline. Decreased breathing rate. And as you can imagine, the opposites of these are when you know you're not relaxed. You're really freaking out. You're stressed out. It's very overwhelming. So what we want to do with resilience particularly, and resilience relaxing, helping you to persevere and keep going, is we want to evoke a relaxation response instead of the stress response. I know many of you have likely heard of fight or flight. I think about that a lot. We just want to make sure you're getting into that calm and digest relaxation response instead of stressing yourself out all the time. So let's see, breathing is generally taught as a first step, I would say, when people are like, hey, just relax. You likely hear next, take a breath, take a deep breath, take a moment for yourself. We do that for a reason, so that when you take these deep breaths, you do slow your heart rate down. You are evoking a more relaxation response rather than the fight response. You are working on your breathing, because usually when you get stressed out or anxious or panicky, whatever it might be, you tend to, it's like you shorten your breath and it's very shallow. So it's like, and so you're wanting to even it out again and get it to what can be normal. I tell people deep breaths and being intentional about your breath. So it might be, everyone's different with their breathing rate. So I say intentional, like you would know individually what works best for you. So try to get to that state again. Different techniques of breathing that we teach definitely at SCS, and then a lot of people have different apps for this. Box breathing is where you can literally think of it like a square or a box, and it's telling you to like take a breath for 4 seconds. So that's exhale, hold for 4 seconds, exhale, inhale for 4, and then breathe it out. So it's kind of like doing some people think of it, visualize a box, and it's 4 seconds on each side with which the step. Breathe in, hold 4, breathe out, hold 4. So getting everything to match up. I sometimes even start simpler with some people I work with. And I know this helps me keep myself on track with breathing. Counting, very basic, just count your breaths. You know, breathing in 1, out 2, 3, 4, really simple, straightforward. The last one I like even more than counting, I would say, this is what I go to a lot, is pace breathing. And this refers to the exercise in which I'm gonna make sure I say this right, your exhale is longer than your inhale. So you inhale, for instance, for 3 seconds, take a nice deep breath for 3, and then you're exhaling for longer than 3 seconds. So whether it be 4 or 5 seconds, because that is sending a message to your body that, hey, we can relax. We're not having short, shallow, quick breaths, really, lengthen it out there. So pace breathing, exhale longer than your inhale. Other things you can do to help relax. Some people really like imagery. So disclosure for myself, I struggle with imagery. So that's why I actually put pictures on the side. So I creatively cannot, like people are like, picture something happy or picture, you know, you're on this slope. And I'm like, I blank on that. And I'm like, just show me a picture. That's easier for me. So I put those. If you're not of the creative mind or struggle with that, it's sometimes just easier to look at something nice, look at something that you know relaxes you. And we highlight, notice the full experience of that image. What do you see when if it's something that actually is really applicable to your life or personal, what's it feel like when you're there? What do you recall hearing? What do your emotions feel? So it's kind of focusing in, and hopefully you pick a relaxing image. This could be landscapes, it could be objects. I put my previous pet here on the bottom because I know when I look at him, I'm just like, oh, like, thank you. Like, yeah, you're so cute. It could be people in your life too. So for that might be family. I know I have a few nieces and nephews that they send me quick videos of them doing something absurd, which I found out one of the girls is licking rocks right now, which is really interesting to watch her just pick up a rock and lick it. So whatever brings you even a little bit more positive energy, helps relaxes you, gets you out of that stressful state. Movement, huge proponent of this. Let's get you moving. And I say small or large because I think the misconception out there is when people are like, get moving, it's like, oh my gosh, I gotta start running. I gotta start climbing rocks. I've gotta really get going. No, this could really be just as easy as literally just get your body in motion, walk around. So I'm in an apartment, walk around the apartment, walk around the block, walk outside for a minute just to get some fresh air, do a jumping jack if you can only do 2 of those, 3 of those, some push-ups, just move your body. Stretching is really easy and can be done anywhere. Doesn't have to be for a long amount of time either. This could really just be de-stressing, getting it back to normal by just taking a few minutes, a few seconds even, especially if you're rushing from place to place, just to make sure you're moving yourself in some way. I also like to add in food as a way to help me de-stress. I know that's for me a helpful skill, which sounds silly to think of like eating as my skill, but it is, but it also comes with baking and cooking. I'm a huge baker. So think about how you can use your sense of taste. Like you likely can think about what are your favorite foods? What are the foods that bring you comfort, that in a way do make you feel relaxed when you're engaging in that eating of just the food, like paying attention to that. few things I like to point out with this, obviously in moderation. Yes, I could probably go through that huge pack of double stuffed Oreos. And I also know I'm going to get like a pretty intense stomach ache after about, let me see now, probably about 10. But I also tend to just do 3 at a time because then I also want to have milk. But everything in moderation, please know your limits and when it starts to go from a good coping skill to something that might be used for more avoidance purposes. Also be careful of stress eating. So we are talking about this relative to resilience, and that is a skill in which you're trying to bounce back from stressful situations. So you don't want to engage in something that would then cause you more stress, because that is the opposite of resilience. So being careful of stress eating and knowing the signs of when you're stress eating versus, once again, eating for coping or for relaxation purposes. I will quickly talk about thinking styles. One of the components talks about highlighting your thoughts that might make it hard for you to even consider getting back to normal or to make things easier in your life. I will point to 3 styles that I've seen, one in research and in the work I've done. So we have global versus specific thinking. So what this means is, if you are one to go into the global thinking style, you believe that the cause of the situation is going to be present in many situations, like a global cause, versus a specific thinker is like, hey, it's just this one class, this one exam, this one assignment. So as you likely can guess, and to let you know, we want to be more of a specific thinker. I thought it would animate specific once I click this, so my apologies, it should be bolded. So we want to realize resilient thinking would say like, hey, this is only happening right here in this situation. It's not always happening and always present globally across my whole year, my whole life. You have stable versus unstable thinking. The bullet under it says, so stable, you've got cause will be present in the future. So it's stable, it's everlasting, it's always going to be there. Versus, hey, it's only going to last a short time due to temporary factors. As you can guess, unstable, which is, I think it's interesting to think it's like, oh, I want to be unstable in my thinking. Not like that, just an unstable thinking style relative to the cause. So you're going specific. Hey, it just happened on exam 3 in my bio class, and it will only last a short time due to those factors, that temporary factors. It's just this exam. It doesn't have to affect every exam moving forward or every science class you take. External versus internal, we want to take responsibility is how I talk about this. You want to realize that the situation you find yourself in might have a little bit to do with you. However, I like to say with this, you got to find your balance. There are some things that are definitely external to your control. So you just need to be very aware and acknowledge, what did I potentially do, or what can I take responsibility for in terms of moving forward, versus, I didn't do anything. I didn't do anything wrong. Obviously the teacher's out to get me, or the world is always making this happen. I never win. Like, no, there's always a little bit, not always, but most of the time I'll say, there's always a little bit where you can take on some responsibility internally. So to recap thinking styles, a resilient thinker there's a typo, the resilient thinker, not resilience thinker, is someone who sees themselves as in charge, knows the situation can change, and sees it as situation specific. Click to the next one. I realized this is usually when I'm like, do you have questions? But I think we're saying you can use the chat if you have questions. Definitely have time at the end where I can respond in the chat or kind of speak through them a little bit for us. Some factors I also like to consider in resilience so for my dissertation, I used a scale that measured resilience, and then there were factors. So I pulled a few of those factors that I think are good things to remember, I would say, and reflect on. So 1, personal competence. This just refers to, do you have that feeling of being prepared? Do you feel capable? Do you feel competent to handle what's coming at you, to handle what stressful situation it might be, whatever has knocked you, once again, off your kilter or off balance in some way. Simple. Trust in your instincts. Your gut is, I want to say always, usually right in some way. There's something it's responding to. So what's your gut telling you? You got to look into your instincts every so often. This does not mean, and I like to clarify this does not mean just jump into everything you feel your urges are telling you to do. No, rather reflect on like, ooh, I got a bad feeling about this situation. I'm going to take a minute before I take an action towards it. This is important to think about in conjunction with your values. And values are those things in our lives that we consider very important to us. So examples could be academics, self-knowledge, respect, family, social relationships, love, compassion, empathy. All of those are great values. There are so many out there. So you want to make sure you are living your life in accordance with those. And usually your instincts are helping you remind you in some way about what those things are in your life. Set some high standards for yourself. So if you didn't already see the little graphic at the bottom, huge Office fan, hope some of you all are out there too, and I wish I could remember which episode this is. So this factor talks about, hey, set that bar high for yourself. If you are just going through life, kind of like doing that good enough, doing the minimum, then it is going to definitely be hard for you to engage in resilience, to enhance your resilience, because you're not pushing yourself to do better and to like learn how to continue surviving. So set that bar, I put this there, realistically high for yourself. So it's like, hey, if you have this high standard for yourself, then when things go a little askew or wrong, you can jump back up. You can see that like, hey, I may have fallen down here using a little bit of that thinking style. I may have fallen here. I may have gotten behind track, but hey, I have this standard. I know I can reach it. I've done it before. Let me get back up there. I just like how it says, the only time I set the bar low is for limbo. And I think that's just a great way to relate it here. Just a good quote. I'm still laughing at it. Last few factors here. Sitting with bad feelings. This is referring to learning how to regulate and handle negative emotions. We as humans don't want to usually deal with bad feelings or negative emotions. This includes sadness, anger, dread, all of those that our guts usually telling us like, ooh, something's gross about this, that icky feeling I have some people say to me. So one route I know I go to is, how do you find a humorous side of it? How do you see the humor in it? Maybe how do you find the lightness in it? How do you find the, almost like the other side of it, the other perspective? So sometimes you do just have to sit with it, and that is learning how to allow yourself to experience it without letting it overwhelm you or take over, let's say, your whole day, your whole week, your whole life. And there are a lot of different skills to do here, and it's definitely finding what works for you, whether it be jumping into something that makes you feel the opposite emotion for a while, if it's breathing through it, if it's writing it out, stretching, talking to other people. There are so many different ways to handle this. It does include, resilience does include just acknowledging it. Don't avoid the negative emotions or feelings, rather sit with it and then proceed. Like I said, could be with humor. I'm one for that. Tenacity, reminder, with resilience, it makes sense. Don't give up. Keep going. Got to be determined. You've really got to just want to keep going. And instead, there are going to be definitely times when you're going through, let's say, grad school. I know with my dissertation, when I was collecting the data, I got a lot of mean emails from my participants. And I think I was definitely sitting at my table reading them and was like, God, I could really just like stop. I could change my topic. I think I have time. I was ahead of schedule. I was like, I don't need any more participants. And then I was like, this is really the opposite of what you're teaching these students and these participants. Don't give up. Get back up, brush off your pants, keep going. As you can imagine, another resilience factor here is having secure relationships. So one of the items on my survey is, let's say true or false, for example, I have at least one secure relationship in my life that I can turn to. I have that one person. So this is thinking, who do you have in your life that you turn to? Maybe not for everything, but even if they're just listening, or you want some advice, or you want some help in some way, For me, I know I have a close friend from college I still text, and she's my listener. Like, I know I can go to her for listening. I have another friend who, she's the advice girl, and she gives it really blunt and honestly. And at times I know when I need that. And so I always appreciate that. So when I go to K for that. Actually, funny enough, they both start with K. So I go to K2 for my honesty and K1 for like, hey, I just need to vent and I need to listen. I need you to listen to me. So we're not doing this interactively today, but I would like to walk you through this practice so you can do it on your own time. So what this requires is usually a piece of paper and a writing utensil. I will say your computers can also work. We're doing everything on computers, laptops, iPads, phones now. I'd say that would be fine too. It could just be opening up a Word document, opening up a notepad on your iPhone or iPad. It's more just having this accessible when you've completed the activity. So I'll walk through this with you guys, and I actually do have how I completed it so you can see how it works. So this is from a study that was done with a resilience program and activities created and run with medical students. So they were, I believe, in their first year of medical school, and they're like, hey, we definitely want to build them up in as much resilient skills as possible so they can keep going through, these next 4 years and then how many ever years after that. So what they had them do for one of their activities was look at a graph like this, or these quadrants here, and it talks about it instructs them, to identify the ways in which you have reliably dealt with stressors in the past or would like to try in the future. So either route works. I will say for my example, I believe I did in the past, like how have I done this? So it has you thinking about these 4 quadrants. The first one on the left is space. Like, where do you go to? Whether that be physical, I would say even mental space could definitely fit here. 2, on the other side, reflection. How do you think? How do you process best? So that is really finding, I think, 1, your thinking style, but also how does it individually work for you? 3 is, I'm going to the bottom left corner. That is self-expression. How do you create? How do you express yourself? What do you create? What helps you deal with stress? What helps you get back from stress? Connection, like I said, we just ended on secure relationships. As an important factor, connection. Who are the people you can rely on? Who are the people you turn to? So I'm going to leave this up for a quick second if you want to, like a snipping tool, take a picture of it. Like we talked about before, this is getting recorded, so this is a few extra seconds for people to do that. Happy to share this. I can definitely put my email address at the end. You're welcome to email. I can share this as well. But here it is completed for me. So you look at each quadrant and it's just typing quick ideas, bullet points, phrases into those sections. So I did this the other day when I was preparing this. I was like, you know what, I actually probably would benefit from doing this myself. Like, this would be a good reminder. Like, let me think through and reflect on how I go through my life. So space, where do you go? Right now, I think outside has really been a safe space for me, I would say. So once again, like I said, I live in an apartment. I just need to get outside sometimes. And getting out there just makes it, I don't know, it really, yes, opens up the world because I'm outside, but also for me, I think it's like symbolic of like, I'm just like opening myself up to so much more. So specifically, I have a very small patio / balcony, and I just bought a 0 gravity recliner. So there's the excitement that I get to sit in that. It's brand new and it's outside. It's covered. So even when it's raining, this has been awesome recently. Yeah, because it's been raining this past week. I sit out there and I have a cover over because I'm on like a middle floor. So I can sit out there and listen to the rain. I can read. It has like a nice ambiance to it. And that definitely helps me de-stress at the end of the day and feel like, one, I can get ready for bed with a lot less stress on my mind. Also, I volunteer. So I put the dog shelter. So I volunteer every week on a dog team at a shelter. And it just gives me, I feel like I have a great purpose there. I love going there. Sometimes it smells, can easily be cleaned up. But I love going there. I love seeing the new dogs we get every week. I like interacting with the other people that are there that are also devoting a few hours every weekend to go. Other spaces could be whatever around Oxford, or if you're not back in Oxford, which I think many grad students are, hometown. Is there something you miss at home? So It even could be, I almost consider just putting like my kitchen, because that's a place I just tend to be a lot. And that's because I'm always, like I said, cooking or baking, and it has beautiful counters that I just tend to stack things on. So I'm always in there organizing something. Reflection. How do you think and process best? I put these words, they were the first ones that came to my mind here. I'm a goal-oriented person. Like, there is no doubt, if you ask anyone who knows me, they're like, yes, she's this. I set goals more innately than like writing them out, but I'm always like, okay, you're gonna get this done. This is what you need to do today. Boom, boom, boom. I'm a problem solver. I'm very action focused. I'm always trying to make sure I get things done in a certain time. I'm always one for just do it now. Just do it now. Let's be efficient. And then if things come up that can feel like a problem or throw me off balance, like we're talking about, I'm always thinking like, who can I reach out to? How do I troubleshoot this? What's the next step? What's the next small step I could take? Self-expression for the bottom left. How do you create and what do you create? As I already hinted, I'm a baker, I'm a cooker. That's just how I really, I'd say, de-stress at the end of the day, or definitely the weekends, or when I'm just bored sometimes, I just do that. And I know that can get me into a slump if you're bored for so long, especially considering everything right now. I've recently gone into painting, and I did mention earlier, I'm not creative. I will own that. So I have found, this is a fun thing, I found like Q-tip painting in tutorials and DIYs. And I did that for like the first 2 months, and I will, you know, I was gonna say like brag on myself, but that's not the word I'm looking for, but I'm going to be a humble bragger now, I guess. I made some like cherry blossom paintings, some lilac and lavender. Was just using Q-tips and a few different paints because it was a really cute step-by-step tutorial. Recommend it. But that was, for me, a different way to, I think, focus in on something and get out of my head a little bit. Like, someone was telling me what to do, I just did it. And I put movement here. I was thinking this through, and I said, how do I create? And I was like, I can create with my body. Like, I create motion, I create movement. And for me, that's so big, whether it be combining it with the space, getting outdoors, moving around. I just like to always be moving until my body is like, hey, you've walked 15,000 steps today, which happens a lot when I'm at the dog shelter because they love going out and running around. I'll take a break then, and that's when I might focus more on my physical health. Connection. Just who you going to? Who are you relying on? I wrote family, college, and graduate school friends. I went on internship for my program, so I have 2 friends that just get it from a different perspective. So I love reaching out to them and just being like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this happened. They're like, oh my, like, I remember when that happened. During the time of COVID, I will say I've made friends with my neighbors. So this has been a really cool surprise through it, which someone referred to it as COVID etiquette, which I live in an apartment complex. I've said hi to people more, or we now actually been finally asking our names because we've had to hunker down in our own spaces. So my small social circle right now really is just my 4 neighbors in different buildings who also happen to have dogs, and we stand at the dog park and let our dogs run around, and they, you know, get all up in each other's business, but we're kind of standing at our distance, but we'll still have like dinners, or we'll hang out by the grill area, the pool. It's been really nice, I think, to have that physically during this time right now. So this is just an example of how this activity could work. I recommend it, and I say you want it to be something accessible so that when you might feel stuck, when things feel really hard, you get stuck in a rut in some way, pull this out. Like I said, it might be you would do it on your phone. Just write those 4 headers on your phone and fill them in. It might be you take a picture of when you've completed on your computer or written it out somewhere. It's good to have, and for resilience skills, coping skills in general, the more accessible it is, the easier you'll engage in it and the more likely you are to use it and therefore find it effective. Quick recap of all these skills, because I know I put them all together, really, not really quickly, but I feel like I went through them really quickly, and I want to make sure we leave with a few of the ideas and pick your favorites from them and take it on from here. You can bounce back. Everybody has this capability. We all just might have it at different levels depending on what we've done up to this point. You can come back and bounce back from stress or adversity. It includes being a resilient thinker, like I said, seeing what are you in charge of, seeing that things are very specific to a situation and can always be changing for the, you know, what is it, for the best or worse, something like that. Taking care of yourself physically, take a breath, take a deep breath, be intentional with your breathing. We talked about box breathing, counting your breath, and then pace breathing, which is making your exhale longer than your inhale. believe in yourself, realize that you're competent, you can do this. You want to definitely have that more positive mindset towards you, because if that's already not so great, it's going to make it harder for you to get back to yourself and get back to what you need to do. Bad stuff happens and it's okay. We are living it right now. Bad things can happen. Bad feelings therefore come from bad events happening. It's okay. It's how you decide to cope with it, how you decide to use resilience as a way to get out of it. Work hard, keep going, utilize your supports, utilize your self-creation, how you express yourself, utilize your physical spaces. There's a lot to utilize. So make sure you know what works for you and use them. Quickly talk about SCS, because I'm in charge, like I mentioned, I coordinate the group and workshops. We have started a series of weekly virtual workshops. So if you're not familiar with student counseling services, right now we are primarily doing telehealth services just to be safe. Not rarely, like we will take case by case if we need to do in person, but it will still be at a distance. It will be in masks. But right now, primarily everything is telehealth. So that includes your initial consultation, which is like an intake. We offer individual counseling. We have group counseling specifically for y'all that we do have a graduate student support group that is led by 2 of our staff right now. I'm helping them with this group as well. I've seen it run in the past. I think it's a great space. If you just need to hear other people, you just feel like you're so alone, you need to relate. Great space. It is virtual this year. It's going to be WebEx to get support, hear other perspectives, hear from other people, hear from our facilitators, and maybe learn a thing or two. Who knows? We have Campus Cares, which is referred to as our casual conversations with a counselor. It is offered weekly on Tuesdays from 5 to 6 p.m. This is Eastern Standard Time, by the way, and Thursdays 3 to 4 p.m. That link is just available on our website. You would go to our website and then click on, I'm trying to make sure I do this right, there's a Campus Care tab or a button on the front screen, and it'll have like a red box at the end to like join Campus Care. You can only join during this time. Like we don't have anyone logged in otherwise. So for instance, my Campus Care was this Tuesday, like this past Tuesday. We have offered virtual weekly workshops right now. So just to give you an idea of some topics we covered, these are the next few weeks coming up. So next Wednesday, my colleague Bethany will be presenting about cultivating self-compassion. This is Wednesday at 2 p.m. The following week, we've got Laura, who's going to talk about thinking about thinking. This is a really cool one as well. Going along with the thinking styles of resilience, she talks about cognitive distortions and thought traps. And funny enough, we have Catherine the following week, which is Monday, September 21st at 3 p.m. She will be talking more about resilience. And I may have borrowed this activity from her, that paper one we did, or electronic one we did now, but she will be covering a few other factors or fleshing out these a bit more. I have to actually watch that one this year. I missed it over the summer, so I'm excited to see what else she can add and what other things have I not considered under resilience. So if you have any questions or want to get us set up with our services, Campus Care and virtual workshops, you can sign up yourself. You literally just go to our website. There are links and you just register. It's really basic. It's just for a virtual workshop, it just asks for your name and email address. And then Campus Care is just a click and you log in. You just have to have WebEx, I believe we've got it set through. So give us a call if you ever have any questions at 513-529-4634. And one of our lovely ladies up front, Tanya, Andrea, or Kelly, will be able to answer your questions or refer you to one of our staff who can answer your questions. And questions on questions, this wraps up my presentation part of our time together. So this is a great time to enter in the chat if you have any questions or comments or just something you'd like to put out there and get thoughts on, we'll say. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen